Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to episode number 78 of Material Issues. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. Joining me normally, I say, from the West Coast, but he's working his way up the East Coast. It's the head honcho of the International Pop Overthrow Festival, my very good friend, David Bash, all the way from Boston. How you doing tonight, David?
I'm doing well, Mark. How are you?
I am great. It's been a beautiful day here in South Jersey after raining all day yesterday, and really nice and sunny.
We just skirted the rain coming up here. It rained really heavily last night in New York, and it stopped at around 8 a.m. Nice. So we didn't leave till around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and it was still raining in Boston at that time. But by the time we headed up here, we missed it on the back end as well. So
right. Yeah.
The forecast is supposed to be really good for IPO. Yeah. That's why I'm here. International
You're kicking it off tonight.
Boston starts tonight and goes through Friday at Union Tavern, and then on Saturday we're at Midway Cafe, a venue nice. I've never used. So, but I've heard really good things.
Oh, jeez, it's starting already.
Gee, could that be John Borak, or could that be? I'm not sure who it could be, actually.
Well, I'll tell you what. We were discussing earlier, right before going on air, the word skosh. We know what it means. It means a little bit of this or a little bit of that, but we don't know how to spell it or if it's an actual word. So if we have any English majors out there, is skosh a word? And how do you spell it? Please leave it in the comments so we can both sleep tonight and not have to toss and turn about it. But
well, Nova Scotia, of course, you've got SCOTIA. Yeah. So I suppose if you take the A away, you've got Scotia, SCOTI.
And as I said, I was enjoying a Scotia and soda.
Like nation, see? It works because the TI, the nation, that H sound in nation is TI.
It's interesting.
Or SH. So Scotia, SCOTI. That's how I'm spelling it. Well, now I know that's John Borak.
Here's a question for you, David, though, that's been bothering me all day today, and we might have even talked about this before, but I saw an advertisement, the Cowsills, who were on an earlier episode of Material Issues, they're playing their Christmas show in Branson, Missouri. I think tonight it starts. And opening up for them is the Letterman. And as I told you, a niece of Tony Butala, original member of the Letterman, lives 1 block away from me. Well, but I looked up the Letterman, and there's no original members in the Letterman anymore. So do you think that's a ripoff that people are going to see the Letterman, calling themselves the Letterman, and having no original members of the Letterman?
I think in the case of the Letterman, probably not, because I don't think in that case anyone really knew who the original members were in the first place. So as long as it sounds good, I would imagine that the people who are there will be happy with it, as long as they do the right songs. I mean, obviously, if it's a band or a group or a band for which people know the members, then and nobody's there, then yeah, that's a problem. I remember Iron Butterfly did a show in California, and I don't know if they had any original members.
But it's not like the Letterman had like one minor hit. They had a number of hits. They had 2 Grammy Awards. They were pretty big, late 50s, early 60s. So for people of that time, maybe.
But no one. Here's the thing: from a moralistic standpoint, yeah, they shouldn't call themselves that. Right. From a more practical standpoint, I don't think anybody in the crowd is going to know or care.
Probably. Yeah.
And as long as it sounds good, if it sounds like the Letterman, they'll be happy.
Right.
So that's it. Again, if I was going to see the Association, for example, and there were no members, I would not want to see it, because to me that would be an association tribute band.
Well, but that's because you are a fan of the association.
Right.
But let's say you're a casual fan right?
Yeah.
And you didn't know who the members were in the first place.
Then
They
I
just
mean,
then they're you know.
for all
Yeah.
practical purposes, if nobody else cares, I don't care.
It's just something that's always bothered
no
me
one
with
else should care either.
I just
I
think,
hope you can too.
or like a band that's touring and calls himself whatever, and the original member that's in the band is the drummer who never sang and was out front in the first place. I don't know. The tickets better be discounted. That's all I can say.
Well, I mean, again, if it's something that you care about, if it's a band you care about, and there's no original members, then yeah, I think that's a problem.
Okay.
And I wouldn't go.
Yeah.
But if it's a band, if it's somebody that nobody, if it's a group for which no one cares who the original members are, then what the hell? As long as it's entertaining.
Okay.
I mean, because people won't care.
Yeah.
So if nobody cares, why should we?
Well, it gets back to my many arguments with people. But
that's a problem, though, because people knew who was in the Byrds. They knew that. They knew about McGuinn and Crosby and Hillman. And so if Michael Clark's the only one, that's not going to – I mean, even Joey Molland doing Badfinger was questionable because –
That's a stretch, yeah. That's a stretch.
While he was an instrumental member of the band, he wasn't one of the two main front guys. So –
yeah, we could talk about this forever because we could get into.
We really could, but we shouldn't because we have a guest introduced.
We got a guest we want to bring on, which is going to be much better than this conversation anyway.
I would hope so. Yeah, I met this gentleman online. I've not met him in person yet, but he is one of the main members of a Facebook group called Trivial Minds, in which people, as you might guess, normally they ask questions involving trivia having to do with movies, music, things like that, or they might post things that are informative, but in the trivia arena. But what this gentleman does is often he will post questions pertaining to songs or artists from the 60s, 70s, or 80s, and these are multi-level questions. They're maybe about 5 or 6 initial clues. And those clues are difficult. It's very rare that anybody would be able to get the answer from just those clues. You have 24 hours. So, it's not like Stump the Bash where you only have a few minutes. But if nobody answers within a certain amount of time, he'll then add some more hints. And ultimately, somebody usually gets it. But sometimes it takes several hints and several hours. So he obviously does lots of research painstaking research to ask these questions. And, I just got fascinated with these questions and started talking to him. Occasionally, if I had a disagreement about how the clue was presented, I might have. Didn't happen often because, like I said, he's really good at it. He's also the program director of WKUF FM 94.3 Flint, Michigan, home of Grand Funk, I believe.
Yes, indeed.
Although he's a little bit too young, I think, to have seen them in their heyday. I also think Flint is known for not good water. I don't remember.
Probably picked a bad time to be born, right? Thank you.
Well, yeah. I mean, he grew up listening to 80s, but he knows 60s and 70s like the back of his hand. So, so he's really cool, and we're really glad he's here. So, without further ado, would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Mr. Malcolm Bondon? Hey, Malcolm.
And there he is.
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
How are you?
We're doing wonderful. Nice to meet you, my friend.
Likewise.
And if you're getting high praise for some trivia research from David Bash, that's high praise, because anybody that watches this show knows he's almost like a savant with music trivia.
But you know what? I forgot to mention Malcolm almost equally asked questions like this about movies or TV shows.
Right. Yep. That's
things pertaining to, like he'll say if a show was rated in the top 10 or not, if members won Emmys, if they went on to do other things or had done other things. I'm not as good with TV as I am with music, so I generally can't get any of those right, but it's fascinating watching people try to figure it out. And invariably, it's going to take hours before somebody does, if they do at all. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah,
anything.
it's
I
fun
didn't
to
know
be
anything
doing.
about it.
I love putting that stuff together. So
Where did you develop your love of trivia, or just love of all this stuff?
as a kid, watching TV, watching movies, listening to the radio, getting reference books on pop culture, music, movies, etc. And some of those books I still have. And like I was telling you, David, last weekend, I think I was 13 when I bought my first Billboard book, the Billboard Book of Top 40 Hits.
Yes.
And that was right around the time I started listening to Casey Kasem's American Top 40. And I was off to the races, so to speak, as far as my interest in the Billboard charts.
And what do you think it is about pop culture that continues to stay in our minds and zeitgeist of loving the stuff from the 60s, the 70s, and creates these trivia moments that we enjoy and we call back on?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that, it takes us back to a certain time, for people who were either born in that era or maybe watching, from their parents or older siblings, watching a certain TV show or getting turned on to a certain artist, and just that stuff, it holds up, and like I say, often in regards to music, good music never goes out of style.
Now, were you hooked when Trivial Pursuit came out?
Yeah. Yep. Playing the regular version, like the Genesis edition, Baby Boomer. Yeah.
And then after a while, you're like, oh man, we've gone through all the cards. Now what do I?
That's always a problem. Now, I guess the computer games, I would imagine, are way more involved, way more questions.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know, Malcolm, whether you've heard of this new game called Outsmarted.
I have not.
It is actually, you can order it and it comes on a board, but you can play, everybody plays with their own cell phone. Okay. So
Okay.
like I play with my daughters. They're both in Florida, and
Okay.
you create a room and everybody gets on. Now you can just do the dice rolling and picking of the categories, each person on their own cell phone, and it'll keep track of points, or like Trivia Pursuit, colored rings and things. But they're constantly updating the database. So the category of like today's news and events is updated every 3 days. So there's always new there's new questions and things. And so far we've not run into any kind of duplicate questions, and it's a lot of fun. But
it sounds like it, yeah.
If you don't know that game, it's called Outsmarted. Not that they're sponsoring this program at all, but
Free plug, nothing wrong with that.
If you love trivia, it's really good.
And if you do know that game, it's still called Outsmarted. That's always that's one of the weird quirks of the English language.
But you know what? It kind of, what you were talking about as far as Outsmarted, just made me think of like one of the things that over the last several years has kind of bothered me in a way in regards to trivia and technology, is that people can, like Google the answer or, just look up stuff. And to me, I can, train, I can show my 7-year-old great niece how to look up stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really mean anything, but if you know it or can at least try to figure it out, to me, that means a little more something, So that's why, like, the questions that I do on Trivial Minds are more involved. It's for the most part, they're Google proof,
Or it turns into
wouldn't Google. I mean, you really hope that nobody would cheat. I mean, that's
right. Because I think most people on Trivial Minds, they play it straight.
Yeah, I think so.
One person, because I asked her, because she got it pretty quick. She said, "Wow, good job." It's like, and she actually admitted that she looked it up. I'm like, oh,
come on.
And that was a really good question too. And it's like
But if you build the questions just right, you could almost make it like a scavenger hunt, where maybe question number one, even if you Googled it, doesn't give you that much to go on, But
yeah. And then two, that reminds me what you just said, Mark. It's in Wisconsin. I think it's called like the world's largest trivia contest or something like that. They've been doing it for years and it's very successful, but I don't play anymore. I played a couple of years, but it's more like glorified scavenger hunts instead of trivia.
Gotcha.
Like where they're asked, like there was a question about the movie Silver Streak. Like, what was the bus number? I mean, does anybody really care about something like that? That's not trivia to me. That's minutia.
Yeah,
Right.
name 3 magazines that were on the newsstand in Airplane, in that one scene in Airplane.
I can do that. No,
well, you can probably do it, David, because you have to pause that, because all the magazines are all made up titles and they're hilarious, but it goes by like that.
Right.
And I never knew anything about it until someone told me, and I had to watch it and pause it online and read the magazines. And I don't even remember what they were, but you know.
And Malcolm, did you grow up in Flint?
Yes, that's where I was born and raised.
And what was your radio station of choice?
As a kid, we listened to Wham. That was the AM soul station back in the day. And then when FM came in, WDZZ, that was the soul station. I'm trying to think some of the other stations. WWCK, they were the they were the album rock station back then. Because that was actually, as a kid, one of my fondest memories is when John Lennon, that's not a fond memory, John Lennon being shot, but becoming, even a bigger fan of the Beatles music, because I started watching the Beatles cartoon when I was a kid. And then when he was killed, I think maybe for the whole week, WWCK played like all Beatles. So I started to learn about, like not just the hits, but the album tracks.
Yeah.
Ended up getting one of my older brothers for my birthday that Christmas bought me the Beatles 1967 to 70.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you listen to CKLW ever, or was that too far?
No, I didn't. I remember hearing about it, and then I did watched it multiple times. The documentary Radio Revolution, which is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you guys both seen that?
I have. It's been a
Okay.
while, but I've seen it, and
That was great.
I need to see it again. But one of the reasons I brought that station up is what and I'm sure you did this too. One of the things I always looked forward to, pretty much for the whole year, was a top 100 of the year.
Yeah.
My station was WABC, and I would look forward to, in 1970, it was the Heavy 100 of 1970.
Okay.
Right. And then, but every year I would look forward to it. But I then discovered, as a kid, I thought, well, that must be the only radio station doing it. And it turned out, no, a bunch of others were.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember one night in 1974, I was just switching it was at night, so I was picking up a lot more stations. I picked up CKLW. And they were doing their top 100. They, unlike ABC, which did it in random order, they did it in numerical order. I remember hearing these songs. I remember hearing "Thanks for Saving My Life" by Billy Paul. It's like, what the hell is this? WABC never played that. That's in the top 100, and I never even heard it.
Yeah,
that's what I would
barely
find
scooped
out.
in the top 40 on the Hot 100.
Yeah, I mean, CKLW had different, and then I started to find out that all these radio stations did their own top 100,
Right?
And some of them, they had songs on there that I'd never even heard. The regional charts back then were so exciting. I'm sure you felt the same way,
right? And that was what I was just about to talk about, how the concept of the regional hit, that's gone now. But
yes, it is.
Back in the 60s and 70s, maybe even into the 80s to an extent where, local radio stations would play local artists.
Right.
It wasn't a thing, that, you could hear that stuff. And then, with the artists, driving around to different radio stations, plugging their latest single or whatever, but that's gone now. So,
yeah,
those days are gone. I mean, and local stations, WMMR and the Philly stations and things, they're going to play some local artists, but that's available online, and anybody anywhere in the world with access to it can hear. So it becomes not just local anymore. It becomes whatever it is. And I remember when I first started writing for Oddities and Goldmine and a couple of those magazines and interviewing some of these bands from the late 60s and the 70s, they would always say, well, we were kind of regionally big. We never got out of our region. And that's when I first really started figuring out that, all right, the radio stations really were just in a region. And that was the distance that you could hear this local band that they were playing.
And of course, in smaller cities, you'd have songs that didn't even make the Billboard Top 100 for any given week. Songs finishing #1 for the week.
Yeah.
I remember what the heck was it called? A Black on White by North Atlantic Invasion Force.
Okay.
Number one in Hartford for 1 week in 1966.
Wow.
I found that out. It's like, what the hell is that? You know, some garage record that by a band from Hartford. So they're great. Did you, when you were a kid, did you have ambition to get into radio, or did that come later?
That came later. Yeah. I was always fascinated about radio, but never really thought about, getting on the air. So yeah,
So how did it end up happening?
A friend of mine, because I had some TV background and I was working at the Borders in Flint, and one of my coworkers, she knew the program director at an AM station in Owasso who was looking for weekend on-air people. So she was like, yeah, why don't you get in touch with Linda? So she gave me the number. So I called Linda, and she had me come down to the station, and I read some copy. She wanted to, just hear what I sounded like. And I believe that weekend I was on the air, and I used to do weekend mornings, and I would do some afternoons and evenings also. Because like I said, we were AM, so we were sunrise to sunset.
And what was the first programming? What were you playing on your first gig?
Well, our format was, our slogan was Great American Classics. So we would play a lot of big band, stuff from the 30s and 40s. We played a lot of singers and standards, Doris Day, Eddie Fisher. We played some early rock and roll. We played, stuff from the 60s, like, some of the softer stuff by the Beatles, like Yesterday, the Wright Brothers. We played Motown. We played some of the country pop stuff like Glenn Campbell, Bobby Gentry, things like that.
Nice.
And we also got into the soft, the singer-songwriter soft rock stuff from the 70s and the 80s. And then as time went on, I would even bring in some of my stuff that we didn't have in our playlist, but that still fit what we were doing. So I might come in and play like a deep cut from a Greatest Hits CD by Del Shannon, for example.
Nice.
So yeah, we were able to, have a lot of fun, and we had a very loyal audience. There was one lady, it was funny, she would call, like the first time she called, she's like, I want to hear the Motorcycle Song. And so I'm thinking, she talking about Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf? And so she's like, no. And she's like, it's by the Shandells. So I'm like, and it's like Shangri-La's Leader of the Pack. And she's like, yeah, that's the Motorcycle Song.
Nice. I wouldn't have known that.
And so I was like, yeah, that's Leader of the Pack by the Shangri-La's. But every week she called, she still called the Motorcycle Song. So,
well, do you remember your first call-in? Because when I did college radio, the very first day I was on air, I remember my very first caller who called in, and I was talking to them live on air. I'll still remember to this day because there were so many bleeps going on, and
because I was from the caller, you or both?
No, both probably. But I was doing a show all on kind of like late or mid to late 70s UK punk and things, and at the time, and it was rocking pretty hard. And I got my first caller in from Reading, PA, who was a big punk fan, and all it was this effing show is so effing great. That's all you
complimentary,
it was complimentary,
right,
but I don't think anybody could understand anything between the Morse code beeps. You'd have to figure it out. But I'll never forget that.
Yeah, so I don't remember my first call, but I remember some of the memorable calls that I've had over the years. Like at WOAP, the AM station I was talking about that I worked at in Owasso, we had a guy, he used to, cause we Saturday and Sunday afternoons, we did forget what it was called, but it was oldies from the 50s and 60s and some 70s mixed in. The guy who did it was Art Van, but I would fill in for him sometimes. And this guy he called, I think he was, bending the elbow, which is fine. But he called in, hey, play me some boogie woogie. He used to like 50s rock and roll. So it's like, yeah, will you play some of that? When I was on the air at WKUF, there was one time I was doing 80s. And so a young lady, she called in and she wanted to hear something by Ludacris, whatever his current hit was at the time. And so I told her, no, I'm doing 80s today. So she's like, oh, you're playing oldies. Or another time, when I had my format was 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so a guy called in. He's like, "Yeah, since you're playing oldies, how about some Alice in Chains?"
Oh my God!
I didn't correct him because, like, to some people, the 80s
Right.
and Alice in Chains may be oldies to them. It's all.
Well, what is actually considered oldies today? Is that the 90s?
Well, that's a good question with me. Because I use the term, sometimes I'll use the term real oldies. Because to me, oldies are the
Very
50s,
oldies.
the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
The oldies are goodies. Yeah.
Right. So on WKUF, where I'm the program director, we have an automated show on Saturday evenings called The Greatest Songs of the 50s and the 60s. It used to be Solid Gold Sunday, but now it's on Saturday. So I just rebranded it. But it's 50s and 60s strictly. So 1969 is the cutoff.
I mean, it's interesting
that
to
show.
talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what I was talking to Mark about at one time, that when you're a kid, 1 year of your life seems like forever.
Yes.
Now, a year of your life seems like you blink and it's gone. It's kind of like the same thing with, I mean, rock and roll was only, well, as the mainstream knows it, rock and roll was only around since the mid 50s.
Right.
And so in 1970, rock and roll was only about 15 years old. So yeah, you could call songs from 1959 or even the early 60s. You could call those oldies because the percentage of time was of the life of rock and roll that had passed was really high. Now, I mean, we're in 2022. You're talking about the 90s, which is like 25 to 30 years ago, and that's not an oldie because.
Yeah. Right.
But
then also,
not a long, but again,
the
percentage of years of rock and roll, that percentage is even lower.
Right. But then also too, I think it's because that music just changed so much. So like say from "To Do Ron Ron" by the Crystals to "Come Together" by the Beatles, it's only 6 years, but light years as far as style and just the way things change.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but you know what? In the late 70s, the 50s, listen to radio, the 50s was called oldies, because you really didn't have an oldie station that was playing 30s and 40s, but I'm even in the early 70s.
And then American Graffiti, where were you in 62? Like that was supposed to be a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was like 11 years before the movie came out.
But I remember in the 80s, they started calling it the golden oldies. And I think in the 90s, they just called it the dust.
Well, what they started doing like in the 90s was gradually adding, like stuff from the late 70s, which I like, but I don't, when I'm listening to an oldie show, I don't want to hear Rumors era Fleetwood Mac, even though I enjoy that stuff.
Right.
Or disco era Bee Gees or late 70s Stevie. And that's what they were working into the oldies format. Like I said, that's good stuff, but I don't hear that on an oldie station. That's just me.
Did you have a slogan at any of your radio? Did people come to know you by like a certain line that you'd always say?
No, I didn't have a line. No, nothing that I can really think of offhand. There might have been some phrases that I would repeat, but not like a catchphrase or anything like that.
Did you have your own jingle?
Well, I had some things that were recorded, like I had this one young lady, she was a college student, and her and her boyfriend, he was a student also, and he was had his own show, and he was also station management at the time. This is at WKUF, and so one Friday night they were hanging in the studio with me, and she was talking, and she just went into this British accent. She's American, but she just went into a British accent. So I was like, "Hey, that's pretty cool. Would you mind recording a sweeper for me?" So I had her read something like, "Here's an artist from across the pond in a British accent," and I would use that to go into a song by an artist from the UK.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. What would you say now the most, because radio is not what it was, obviously.
Oh yes.
But people who still listen to radio today, what are the most passionate fans? Is it fans of the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s? Because you get to a certain level where you get to where people are born in a certain era, radio is not even in their in their mindset.
Yeah,
it's just all online and Spotify and
I would say people were fans of even music from the 40s. I would say maybe the 40s to the 90s. Just talking from the perspective of our listenership at WKUF, because we play a wide variety of music. We play a lot of new stuff, a lot of stuff by local artists that you're not going to hear on FM commercial radio. But we also, like I said, we've got a solid gold oldies show. We've got an all 80s show, 70s. We've got a couple of jazz shows. We even play some of the early stuff from, like, say, the Andrews Sisters, Bing Crosby, like early weekend mornings. We play indie folk, so we play classic alternative, current alternative, classic rock. So we play a wide variety. And we get, feedback from listeners who will say, wow, I haven't heard this song since I was a kid in the early 70s or something like that. Or they like the fact that we play a wide variety of music. It's not going to be the same 100 songs over and over,
What's your feeling on the satellite stations, Sirius XM and everything as compared to college radio or your radio stations?
I would say they're comparable, because with satellite radio, you got so many stations, channels, what have you, that cater to, you can find whatever you want on.
Really gets into the niche,
Right.
And,
exactly. And so, like, when I'm in my car, I'm listening to Sirius a lot of times. So depending on the mood, I might go from the 80s channel to kids bop, reggae.
And I'll tell you what, here's what my daughters and I do. And here's another trivia side of things. When you turn the dial with Sirius XM, goes to the next station, it tells you the artist and the song that's playing right now. Mm-hmm. We cover up the screen in my car and we go, are we ready? Who can get it first? And I'll just turn the dial and it'll be playing. And one of us has to say who this is.
Now, that's fun. I like that.
You uncover it. You see if anybody got any points. You cover it back up, and we go all the way through. There's like 100 and something music stations, and of course there are stations that I don't know because they're playing modern stuff. Mm-hmm. There's the swing era that I do know. My daughters are like, I've never heard this in my life, because they're in their 20s, Mm-hmm. But it's so much fun. And even though there might be 120 music stations, the final score might be Dad 11, Hannah 9, Leah 7. It's not like I'm kicking their butts. Yeah, because there's heavy. I don't listen to heavy metal. I mean, I'm not judging anybody that does, but I couldn't tell you one artist and song from the heavy metal genre. I just couldn't, and neither can my daughters. And we all just kind of look at each other and go, next. But there's a fun trivia game for you. It's a lot of fun.
Malcolm, do you have a favorite song or an album?
Favorite song? No, I don't. Because I like so much. It all depends on any given day. When you ask me that question, is going to change. Off the top of my head, just as far as this Beatles album, my favorite is Revolver. It used to be, when I was younger, Sgt. Pepper, and then it was Abbey Road, and now it's Revolver.
Now, do you know how when you listen to a song from maybe your teenage years or whatever, it can take you right back to a place and time and almost make you cry or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a song? Because Dave and I have talked about this on other episodes together. Mm-hmm. For me, it's Henry Gross's Shannon.
Okay.
It takes me right back to a junior high dance where I was being ignored by all the pretty girls, and I would sit up in the corner of the gymnasium overlooking the floor. And for whatever reason, when I hear Shannon, it takes me right. I can smell the wood of the bleacher seats. I can smell the cheap perfume that the girls all wore. And that song takes me there. Is there a song that takes you anywhere?
I'll Be There by the Jackson 5 off the top of my head. That takes.
Oh my God, does that take me places? It makes me cry.
That opening, it's like, man, it just gets me.
Yeah.
And then also, go ahead.
Go ahead. That's the beauty of music. That's
right.
It's very sensory.
And it's funny because I love a lot of the new stuff that's coming out, because as a program director for a college radio station, I have to. When I say have to, I don't mean like, oh, I got it. It's like I enjoy doing it, staying on top of current music. And there's a lot of good stuff coming out. A lot of times you don't hear it on commercial radio. You have to kind of search and, see what have you to find it. But I enjoy a lot of that stuff, but it doesn't stick or resonate with me the way the stuff that I heard growing up, like stuff from the 80s or whatever, because like say stuff from the 80s, I can think of when, like a TV show that I might have been watching or a movie that I associated with or a school moment or something, but hearing something, even though it's good, something by Wet Leg, for example, they're an indie duo from the UK, good stuff, but I don't associate it with any memories,
No.
Yeah. The only thing as we just talked, 60s, I can associate specific tracks to being a kid in the backseat of my mom and dad's car. And if Tommy Rose Dizzy came on the radio, I would freak out in the back. So that takes me back to the car, in the car seat. In the 70s, there's some of the punk era stuff in the 80s. But yeah, really from like 1990 on, as you said, it's different. I'm not young anymore. Things aren't like new and crazy and exciting for me as they were growing up. Right. But I associate a lot of things from maybe 2000 on that I hear with my daughters. Because it's their music. It's their things. And if they were performing in a little school skit or a play or whatnot, and they're singing, whatever it may be from that time period, that's the things I associate it with now, but not so much personally. It doesn't take me anywhere.
Right.
Like the songs of the 60s and the 70s, and even into the big hair 80s, because I did have a pretty.
In September of 1970, I got a bowling ball for my 12th birthday. And about a month later, I went bowling. And I don't know why, but I associate the keyboard part of I'll Be There right before Michael sings the words I'll Be There. I associate it with my ball going down the lane, watching it roll. So every time I hear I'll Be There now, I can see that my bowling ball going. I see. Those are some of the weird things that you can associate with songs.
Really? Really? I mean, it really does take you.
Like that.
It takes you to time and place, and you know what? And things that are buried deep in your mind. You could hear that song for the first time in 20 years, and it'll just say, "Oh my gosh, I remember when I first heard that." Bram Tchaikovsky's "Girl of My Dreams." First time I heard that was 1979 at the Kutztown pool, and I remember laying there on my towel, and on the radio came as and I just I went like, who is this? I had to find out, and they didn't follow it with that was Bram Tchaikovsky's "Girl of My Dreams," so you could remember this.
Right.
I went into the local.
I hope you back announce what you play, Malcolm.
I do. Yes.
I went into the local record store.
Frustrating thing ever when you'd hear a great song, and they wouldn't back announce.
Yep. So I would back announce. I would, set the table, so to speak. So when I would do my show, I would set, coming up this hour, like give a few of the artists who are coming up, but I wouldn't do say coming up, we're going to hear the Archies with Sugar Sugar.
Right.
I might tease it in a way or give, like a little piece of trivia, for example. Yeah. Just to kind of, he's playing a song by the Archies, but which one is he going to play? Or say, if I was teasing Tony Basil's Mickey, I wouldn't say, like a one-hit wonder I wouldn't say, a song by Tony Basil, or, I would tease it some way. A little factoid that I, remembered or, had to look up on Wiki, however I found it, just to make sure I got my facts straight.
I can still remember going into the local record store after I heard "Girl of My Dreams" and saying to the record store owner, "Listen, there's a song I just heard on the radio, and it goes like this, da 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 da," and he just looked at me like I was nuts.
How did you end up finding out, Mark?
Just listening to the radio, waiting.
Yeah,
finally.
That's one way. Yeah.
Otherwise,
record stores can be a way too.
You couldn't Google it back then. You couldn't,
what
was played.
So frustrating.
Saturday at 1 p.m. on WZZO, because now you can do that. You can see the whole playlist, and you can go, okay, I see who that is. Couldn't do it back then. You just had to wait.
Yep. But you know what is funny? There's a guy who listens to WKUF, but he's not online, which is fine. And he will send us a handwritten letter. He sent us one maybe last year before, and he wanted to know what song was played on this date at this particular time. So I was able to look it up. I can go back into the history and find out, run a report and find out what was playing at that time. But yeah, he wasn't, he couldn't email us or go to our play history on our website to look it up because he's not online. Like I said, that's totally
great that you can do that. Because I once, in the late 80s, an independent FM station played a song that I really loved. They didn't back announce it. Mm-hmm. So I called the station. I got the DJ. I told him exactly what time it was played. I may have even said like what song was before it or after it. I don't know. And he ended up saying, okay. And he gave me the name of the band and he even gave me their contact phone number. So wow. So I ended up calling the guy I was in California at the time. He was in Maryland. And he said, I'll send you out a cassette. Turned out to be the wrong band. Oh, I'll never know what that song was.
Oh, I love it. That's the beauty of music. That's the beauty of. I think it's the beauty of also being. Well, Dave and I are a little older than you are, Malcolm, but growing up in the '60s, '70s, '80s, kids today don't understand just the beauty of that, the discovery. And the itchiness of not knowing who that was, or when will I hear it again?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
When will I hear this again?
Yeah, because I mean,
I'll just go to Spotify.
Yeah, because I mean, technology is great, but in a way, it takes away the charm of certain things. Like, say,
I think it does.
I used to like going to the record store or the CD store, or whatever, Best Buy, when it got released that first day, waiting in line to get it, going home, putting the CD player. And reading the liner notes, looking at the lyrics, and, holding that physical copy. That was great. Even back in the day, waiting in line to get concert tickets. And, sometimes you might start a conversation with, the next person in line, So it was that feeling of community that you don't get anymore, So something's been lost.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. My oldest, I tell David before, my oldest is 28. And she loves buying vinyl, and she loves going to vinyl stores that carry vinyl from the 50s, the 60s, and 70s. She loves to buy soundtracks. She loves to buy, and she just because and her words, I didn't put it in her mouth, but she says, "Dad, I come home, and I'm holding this big thing, and I'm looking at the artwork, and I'm opening up maybe a gatefold and reading, or I'm pulling out the lyric sheet, or I'm looking at the back." She goes, "I just love reading all this stuff." I said, "See." That's what it is, Hannah. That's the magic right there. Yeah. That's the magic. Then my youngest one, Leah, I love her to death, but she's like,
Different strokes. Yeah.
Different strokes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but if we're going to do a Stump the Bash, we better do it because I got to get to the club.
Well, that's up to you, man, if you want to be stumped.
Oh, is that what's going to happen today? You want to stick around while Malcolm while I do this?
Yeah, I'll stay around and watch. I'll be a spectator.
All right. Hold on a second.
But before we do, I just want to I want to thank you very much for appearing. This was fun.
Oh, this was time flew. Yeah, this is awesome. Oh, real quick side note, and I didn't look it up. I swear to God. Right. James Barry Kiefer is Keith's real name.
No. There we
Good
go.
One.
So it wasn't Keith at all. All right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time here on Material Issues. It's the little thing we like to call Stump the Bash.
Stump the Bash. Stump the Bash. Stump the Bash.
Well, David and Malcolm is in the wings. I don't want to see him texting you any answers and things because I know could be your ace in the hole. Yeah, hands up the whole time, Malcolm.
And he may end up being frustrated because he's not going to be able to say anything. I know this.
Well, we'll watch his reaction. If he starts going, then we know.
Ooh, he can be like Horshack.
But ladies and gentlemen, you know how it works. It's Stump the Bash. It's 1965 to 1975. These are all artists who have ended up in the year-end top 100. We pick a chart position. David picks a year. I read some questions. If he gets it right in the first one, he gets 5 points. Second question, 4, 3, 2, 1. And of the 5 years that he picks, he's got to get 15 points which is only an average of 3 points per question, or we have stumped the bash. It's not happened yet, but it could happen tonight.
Has, but okay.
Well, you had a bonus question. We had to give you a shot, but it could happen tonight because there's no bonus question, and this is chart position number 81.
Oh my God!
Chart position.
The challenge. That's
number
all right.
81.
I asked that.
David, I'm going to need you to pick your first year, 1965 through 1975.
We'll start with 71.
He's trying to go easy, a year that he knows well. Not that he wants to impress Malcolm or anything, but I can see his sweating from his upper lip already. Here we go. 1971. This is clue number 1 for 5 points. David, a rhythm and blues song written by Dave Bartholomew. New Orleans rhythm and blues singer Smiley Lewis first recorded the song in 1955. The lyrics tell of a return of a former lover who is rebuffed.
All right, so this is a cover of something that was written in 55 or recorded.
New Orleans rhythm and blues singer Smiley Lewis first recorded the song in 1955, but it was a rhythm and blues song written by Dave Bartholomew. For 5 points.
Oh man,
you can feel the tension, Malcolm, can't you? Malcolm knows it already, David. Not to put any pressure on you, but I can see.
As soon as you gave the songwriter's name.
Well, I should know this because there weren't all that many.
Somebody's already chimed in. This is easy, David. I think it was Malcolm. I think you chimed in and wrote that.
No, I wouldn't do you like that.
Right. All right. Read the clue again. Maybe there's something I'm missing here.
A rhythm and blues song written by Dave Bartholomew. New Orleans rhythm and blues singer Smiley Lewis recorded.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. I Hear You Knocking by Dave Edmonds.
5 points, David. Right out of the chute. I was worried there a little bit. I thought maybe that one might have gotten to at least 4 points, but great job.
That was actually a little too easy, but it
I
just
don't know.
took me a while because I didn't. Yeah, never mind.
You struggle. Hey, as we've always said, sometimes these clues are a little easy because there's a lot of clues I can pick from. Sometimes the clues are tough because there are not.
It finally hit me that he actually says Smiley Lewis in the song.
There you go. You go. You got it.
Okay.
All right, David, you got 5 points. Now you're in cruise control. What's your second year?
1967.
1967. That was a good year. All right. This one should be no problem for you, my friend. Yeah. It was released as a single and became the band's second top 10 success, peaking at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song was ranked number 478 on Rolling Stone's list of 500 greatest songs of all time in 2004, number 483 in 2010, and number 455 in 2021, and appears on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 songs that shaped rock and roll.
Well, if I even cared about Rolling Stone or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that might help. Read the clue one more time.
Well, the basic clue is it was released as a single, became the band's second top 10 success, peaking at number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Top 10 success, okay.
Yeah, second top 10 success. This is a tough one. Tough one.
I'm sure it is. Well, wait. White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane?
I give up.
Really?
Jesus.
That's it?
Are you sure Rena's not down underneath your desk feeding you clues? That was it. White Rabbit, Jefferson Airplane.
Well, I knew they had 2 top 10s that year, and I also figured that Rolling Stone would actually give a shit about Jefferson Airplane.
Come on, everybody watching. You can comment wow again. There we go. First comment in.
I am impressed with myself for that one. You're knocking, not so much.
Well, we are only 2 questions into the 5 questions, and already David has 10 points. All you need to average is 1.7 for the next 3 questions. Yeah, but we could blank them. Here we go. What's your third year, my friend?
1973.
On Stump the Bash, 1973. All right, here we go. Chart position number 81. This is a song written by Kenny Rankin and recorded by several artists. It is best known as hit single for Georgie Fame in 1969 and this artist in 1973.
Georgie Fame in 69. Couldn't have been much of a hit single. Written by Kenny Rankin. George. See, the only hit I know by him is okay.
I need the Jeopardy theme.
Oh, God, it's not clicking in.
Georgie Fame in 1969.
Hit single, huh? Did he have hit singles in 19?
It is best known as hit single for Georgie Fame in 1969 and this artist in 1973.
A U.S. hit single?
A U.S.?
Yes. U.S. Damn it!
Yes. A U.S. hit
I wonder
single.
what they consider a hit, but maybe I've just forgotten.
That could be another clue down the road if you want to go past.
I don't know.
All right. For 4 points, clue number 2. It was released on Capitol Records with the B-side, What Would They Say?
Capitol, huh? 1973. Well, it ain't Let's Pretend by the Raspberries. Oh. Nah, I don't think he wrote.
Boy, the silence is palpable.
It really is. I don't think he wrote.
I could hear my heart beating.
I don't think he wrote this song, but I'm just thinking about Capitol, right? Oh wait, no, wait, did she have it? No, Kenny Loggins. Yeah, Kenny Loggins wrote that.
I'm all right.
No, for a second I was thinking of Danny's song by Anne Murray.
Oh.
But Kenny Loggins wrote that, I believe. At least I think he did, unless maybe he didn't.
You're still in pretty.
I know
good
he did it.
Malcolm, do you have a clue on this one? You look pretty concerned.
No, I looked it up and it's like I had nothing.
Is it Danny's song by Anne Murray? No,
It is not. It
Okay.
is not. It's okay. You're now at a clue number 3 for 3 points. This was issued as the follow-up to this artist's first #1 hit in February 1973. This artist's version peaked at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100 that May.
I said this artist had a #1.
Got a #1 hit in February of 73.
Oh boy, my brain's just not working.
And this was the follow-up.
Right.
See, after he's gotten 2 straight 5s, he's
I
on
know.
cruise control. So his brain shuts down.
Because now my brain's not working, and God, I should know a #1 in 73.
And I've also paid Dave the Boogeyman $10 to run around in a tutu in the room to distract you.
Especially with who the hell had their first #1? Oh boy, you can tell when your brain's just not going there.
It's okay.
Capitol.
This one's a difficult one. I will
It
say
shouldn't
that.
be that difficult, especially
I
with
think
that
it's
clue.
difficult. So there's no shame in drawing a big zero in this one.
No, wait a minute.
But he won't allow that to happen.
What was #1 on WABC in 73? See, now I can't even recall. And I've got all these other years swishing in my head, and it's ruining everything.
I know, and I'm trying my best.
I
to
know what it
distract
was, but it's not that, obviously, because she wasn't on Capitol. It's not coming to me. Go
All
ahead.
right. Clue number 4 for 2 points. You're still fine, David. During the 1970s, this artist enjoyed international success, especially in the United States, where she placed 15 singles in the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. 6 made the top 10, 3 reached number 1.
She on Capitol.
She is the big clue there.
Oh, it's Peaceful by Helen Reddy.
You got 2 points, buddy. You got 2 points.
No. You know what? I thought I Am Woman was number 1 earlier than February 73. Really? That's when it was number 1?
February 73.
Is that true, Malcolm?
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, don't go to Malcolm for help and feeling bad for yourself because you get 2. I mean, he doesn't feel bad for you.
No, I don't want anyone feeling bad for me. That just doesn't sound right. I thought for sure it was earlier than February.
Hey, listen, I'm not perfect. I could be wrong.
Maybe you know what it is. WABC was on that song earlier than American Top 40. It had to be number 1 in New York earlier. But anyway,
Peaceful by Helen Reddy.
That's my thing. All right, I've got 12 now.
You've got 12 points. You only need a point and a half average for the last two years.
Boy.
So
of course, I'm not going to try and make it easy.
You got to take a chance on some of the years that you're not good at. 1966. All right. Chart position number 81, 1966. This top 10 hit in mid-1966 allowed the quartet to tour England and Germany for the first time. On one of their London club dates, members of the Beatles and the Stones were in the audience. Several minor hits followed until 1968.
Red Rubber Ball by The Circle?
No.
Okay, that's too big. I should have.
All right. Question number 2 for 4 points. You still got breathing room. The group also released 2 singles in 1963 as The 4 Pennies on Laurie Records subsidiary Rust. But they abandoned the 4 Pennies name when their first single hit number 1 in 1963.
So in other words, that single is not under the 4 Pennies.
The single we're talking about now in 1966 is not under the 4 Pennies.
But it's single from 63 isn't either, I would assume.
No. After they hit number 1 in 1963 as the 4 Pennies.
Really? Why don't I know this?
On Laurie Records subsidiary Rust.
I know Laurie. I know Rust.
So the clues you've got in 1966, they were pretty popular enough to tour England and Germany. Beatles, Stones were in the audience.
No.
In 63, they were originally known as the 4 Pennies.
Wait a minute, 66. No, this is earlier than 66, isn't it? Is it this seems like it would be too big, but so is it. I don't know. Is it A Lover's Concerto by the Toys?
No, it is not.
Yeah.
We're down to question 3 for 3 points. The pressure's building a little bit. Here we go.
Malcolm knows it already.
The group was originally a trio of schoolmates, Judy Craig, Patricia Bennett, and Barbara Lee at James Monroe High School in the Bronx in 1960. Judy Craig, Patricia Bennett,
I think I know.
Barbara Lee.
Is it Sweet Talking Guy by the Chiffons?
You just made your 15 points, buddy. 3 points. Sweet Talking Guy.
I almost guessed that the last time. I knew I should have.
I was hoping we could get down to at least question number 2 to make the final question that much more.
Yeah, all right. Well, at least I got to 15.
You got 15. We did not stump the bash tonight, but let's see if we got a little bonus points. Hey, if you get a 5 here, you're at 20 points, and that's pretty darn impressive. So,
okay, well, I'm gonna go back to the 70s. I haven't picked 75, I don't think, for a while. So,
and since you don't care, you've already made your 15. You might as well go 75.
I care,
right?
but
all right, 1975. Final question for tonight's Stump the Bash, which we did not do. Here we go. Chart position number 81. The song became the band's first top 10 single in the United States, reaching number 9, and helped boost public awareness of the band in the US. However, back in the UK, the single and LP failed to chart.
Well, all right. So it's obviously, you're saying it's a UK band then.
However, back in the UK, the single and LP failed to chart.
And it was, the song was what? Read the clue again.
The song became the band's first top 10 single in the United States, reaching number 9, and helped boost public awareness of the band in the US.
And this is,
however,
this is 75. Okay.
1975, back in the UK, the single and LP failed to chart.
Oh, yeah, I don't have the month and I don't have the label, so that doesn't make it easy. And it is a band. Yeah, 75.
Band's first
for me,
LP.
but no, nothing's coming to me right now.
All right, you go on to question number 2?
Yeah.
Clue number 2. AllMusic's Mike DeGagne said, "There's an honest simplicity built around the dynamics of the relaxed rhythm and its enchanting air, mixed with the storybook lyrics and poetic wonderment of the song that carries the listener away, even if they're indecipherable at times. Considering the song as the band's best example of this recipe implemented toward a slower style."
Oh, for
Now,
God's sake.
that is a clue.
Yeah, right. Maybe for Malcolm, not for me.
Don't make me repeat it. That took 10 minutes. Just to
I
get through
know,
that
it was
one.
so convoluted. I've never heard of that writer either.
Yeah.
Read the last part of the clue.
The band's best example of this recipe implemented toward a slower style. So the recipe was storybook lyrics and poetic wonderment, enchanting air.
Yeah, see, 75. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, we're down to clue number 4 for 2 points.
Really?
This-
Wait a minute. You only read 2?
Oh, sorry. Clue number 3. You're right. 3 points. Released on the United Artists label in the USA.
Can't get it out of my head by ELO.
You didn't let me finish. And it's not Can't Get It Out of My Head by ELO. You got it. You're right.
Light orchestra.
I got you. It's ELO. My friend, that is 18
I
points.
knew that finished number 9, and it's one of my all-time favorite songs.
And we did not stump the
lyrics,
bash.
I never even thought about. Yeah, that wouldn't have given me anything.
Good job, David.
Pardon?
I said good job.
Well, let me ask you this, Malcolm.
Yeah.
How would you have? Do you know how you would have done? Do you have an idea? Would you have done better than that?
Yeah.
Oh, see, it's close.
I don't know.
All right, see, it's that close. We need to play then. Now that you've seen what's going on.
You know what? You know what I'd like to see, David? How about also Malcolm being a guest questioner, where he comes on here
Oh, he has to,
and
he does his own.
he
clues.
does his own clues in his own version.
Fine with me.
Just try to.
I like that. I like the sound of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. I mean, you're obviously the master clue giver.
And I can play along, and he can give the clues, and we can go like, "Up, I'm ringing in."
Oh, by the way, I did look it up because I was thinking that "I Am Woman" did hit number 1 in '73, but it was late '72.
Was it late '72?
So it's not right then. So your
Well, I
clue's
mean,
wrong.
Maybe my clue's wrong. I'm sorry. I owe you $1.
Because what does your clue say again? About
February of '73.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Let's see what the clue said. Oh, all right. Here we go. Where is it? Oh, is a song written by Kenny Rankin and recorded by several artists, best known as a single of Georgia fame, issued as the follow-up to this artist's first number 1 hit in February 1973.
Oh,
So
the follow-up was.
It was The follow-up was in February of 73.
Oh, okay.
This artist version peaked at number 12. Yeah, so the follow-up was in 73.
Yeah, see, I didn't hear the comma.
Yeah, I tried to not let you hear the comma.
All right, so that makes sense. Okay.
But
all right. Anyway,
almost.
I'm being told that it's 6:05 and that we better get the hell out of here.
All right.
If we're going to have dinner before the show. Fortunately, the club's only a mile from here. But
all I can say is, Malcolm, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us on Material Issues. And I really think we gotta stay in touch here and get you as a guest.
Yeah, I'd love that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd like to do that, and then also, have me on talk music. Yeah, because the time really flew by.
Time flies by. Yeah,
it really does.
We have a lot of fun. Well, Malcolm, be happy, be safe, be healthy. Have a great holiday season coming up. We wish you the best, and we thank you again for being on here on Material Issues.
Absolutely.
Take care, Mark. Take care, David.
You too.
Have a great night. Well, there you have it, David. Malcolm Bondon, WKUF 94.3, Flint, Michigan. Trivia.
I'm gonna have to listen to his show. I want to hear new songs that I might actually like.
There's a first comments coming in. Thank you, Malcolm. Yeah. Great job. We're having good comments here. So yeah, really, that was a lot of fun, my friend. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. I wish I had more time to talk. Let's just briefly say who's coming up, and then
what do we got going on next week? The week after, we got a couple. We got one neat surprise to talk about.
Next week we have the great. Thank you, Tim. Next week we have the great soft pop artist Bergen White. We talked about him the last couple of weeks, but I'll just say that he put out a wonderful album in 1970 called "For Women Only." It's on Spotify, so check it out. He's got a lot of stories to tell about his career. And then on the 30th, yes, we're going to have the great power pop indie rock artist Mr. Brendan Benson is going to be on Material Issues on November 30th. He has a new album coming out a couple of days later. I should have looked. I don't recall the title, but I've heard some of it. It's really great. He even does a cover on it, which is something he normally doesn't do. It's a really good album, and it's about time. I love him. He's one of my favorites. It's going to be awesome having him on. I wish I had more time to talk, but everyone, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you on the 23rd.
IPO Boston starts tonight.
Yes, and I will be at Dave's house then. So anyway, everyone have a great rest of your day or night. Stay safe, and thanks for listening.
All right. Good night, everybody.